I am Christopher Bogan.
Kyle Hicks.
Drew Brandsma.
Charles Shinn.
Imagine that the country you reside in is being invaded. Thousands of people are being tortured and murdered. You're asked by your boss to keep a secret that could ultimately lead to the death of yourself and those involved. Would you do it? Would you risk everything you have to help others, some you barely even know? Being a military dependent or an actual military member, we're aware of the sacrifices that we're taking and the risks that we're taking in order to protect others. We signed a paper saying we'd serve and defend. This lady made no commitments, nor did she take any oaths. She just made one promise to one man. I'm going to tell you of Meet Geis, a brave woman who dedicated herself in hard times to those in need of help. First, we're going to go over her early life. Next, we'll go into her life during World War II and her contributions during that time. And we'll end with her life after the war and her final days. Now, let's start where it all began. Meet Geis was born February 15, 1909 to a working class family in Vienna, Austria. Because her parents weren't able to make ends meet, she was sent to the Netherlands when she was 11 and taken in by a foster family. They eventually moved to Amsterdam when she was 13, and when she was 24, she met Otto Frank and began working for him as an office assistant. Now you might be thinking, Frank, Otto Frank, where have I heard that name? If your guess is Anne Frank's father, you're correct. Let's see how Meet ties into the Frank family and her actions and contributions during World War II. During the fall of 1940, anti-Jewish measures were steadily increasing. At the same time, Meet was in a long-term relationship with Jane Geis. They eventually got married in 1941, and in 1942, the Star of David was mandated by Adolf Hitler. And this meant that all Jews had to wear the star whenever they went out. This event led to Otto Frank going to Meet and asking her for help. In Geis's memoir, Anne Frank Remembered, the story of the woman who helped to hide the Frank family, Meet recalls Mr. Frank's request. Meet, are you willing to take on the responsibility of taking care of us while we are in hiding? Now think about that for a second. You go to work day to day, have the occasional talk with your supervisor, ask you, hey, how's the family? Hey, how was your weekend? You don't expect to come into work and have your supervisor come to you and ask if you will help hide them and their family from enemy forces. You might be feeling nervous, anxious, confused. Regardless of what she was feeling, Meet decided to help them. And in the summer of 1942, Margot Frank, Otto's oldest daughter, was summoned to a forced labor camp. 1 week later, Meet had successfully moved her dentist by the name of Fritz Pfeffer, the Van Pell family, and the Frank family into the secret annex. The secret annex was actually an apartment located in the back of Otto Frank's office building, and the door to it was covered by a bookcase. From the day she moved these individuals into the annex, that marked the 2-year secret, marked the period of the 2-year secret. During this time, Meet was part of a 4-man team along with her husband in aiding and protecting those in the annex. The Meet Geis story, Hiding the Frank Family, found at teacher.scholastic.com, lists supplies Meet was able to offer to those in the annex, things such as food, bread, cheese, potatoes, games, reading material like magazines, books, newspapers, outside news. Any news from the outside would have been welcomed. And most importantly, she offered them friendship. Trust wasn't easy to come by in those days, but Meade proved to be a loyal and devoted friend. On August 4th of 1944, the German Gestapo finally came and invaded the building. They uncovered the secret annex, found all those in it, and sent them off to concentration camps. By good fortune, the officer in charge was also from Vienna. He recognized Meade's accent, therefore she and Jan were let go on terms that they would not flee the area. In September of 1944, it was clear that the Germans were losing the war, but it was still a hard time for everyone. And in 1945, deliverance finally came for the Jews. And in June of that same year, Otto Frank returned to Amsterdam, where he was given Anne Frank's diary, and it was published in 1947. In 1950, Meade bore her only child, Paul, and by that time, life went back to normal. Meade remained close friends with Otto until his death in 1980. Since the diary was published, Meade had become an activist and promoted causes of tolerance. According to the New York Times article entitled, "Lieb Geis, Protector of Anne Frank, Dies at 100, she was awarded the Righteous Gentile title by Israeli Holocaust Museum Yad Vashem. From that same article, quoted from an online chat in 97, Geis stated, "I was not a hero. I was an ordinary housewife and secretary." Meade died January of 2010 and is survived by her son and 3 grandchildren. Now that we went over some significant events in Meade's life, let's review. First, we went over her childhood. Next, we went over her contributions during World War II. And last, we summed it up with her later years. Quoted by Mrs. Geis, found at brainquote.com. "Permanent remorse about failing to do your human duty, in my opinion, can be worse than losing your own life."